Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. Do you need e-commerce in your business? I'm your co-host, Chris.
And this is Brad. This episode is recorded on February 24th, 2025. Chris, with an extra Chris. E-commerce. In 2025, many businesses, if not all businesses, can benefit from e-commerce. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Chris De Visser about Commerce Build and its e-commerce solution. Hey Chris, did you know that you can use AI in Business Central to manage your financials?
Really? You can? How?
You can with Data Courage's apps for Business Central. Data Courage helps you uncover the why behind your data. It's not just about looking at numbers. It's about truly understanding them. Their AI-powered apps for Dynamics 365 Business Central go beyond reporting and give you real insights, things like recommendations, summaries, and suggestions you can act on. You can even chat with your data and ask, what matters? How's my profit and loss looking? Where are the risks? What's the best decision for tomorrow? And you'll get clear, actionable answers. How cool is that?
That's cool.
Take their app's financial intelligence. It creates your profit and loss statement and balance sheets in minutes, gives you an instant pulse check of your financials, and frees up your time to focus on decision making. And they've also got other apps that give you insights on customers and products. Oh, and here's an important part. The AI is built with security as a top priority, so your data stays safe right where it belongs in your environment. Ready to see the why behind your numbers? Visit datacourage.com and check out their app and app source.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey guys,
How are you doing?
how are you?
Very
Good.
well, very well. That office looks familiar.
Yeah, it's what can I say? It's probably it's a WeWork, right? So there's like a couple hundred of these.
Oh,
that's why
very
it looks
cool.
familiar. How long have you been at a WeWork?
I mean, on and off, I would say almost 10 years.
Oh, so do you
I-
have?
I'm one
And
of the
we-
few people that, because of the pandemic, went into the office. It's because my wife started working from home. We had our daughter born, and we just had to. Somebody had to leave the house.
And that's why you're still married, because you chose to leave the house during the
Yeah,
day.
it's I'm sure anybody with young kids recognizes it. Of course, I love my kids, but we have 3 of these youngsters right now. And when people say Happy Friday, I have like a reverse reaction from what it was a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh God, it's the weekend. It means hard work. It means like not being able to think for myself and just live by the grace of these minions. And then on Monday, I'm like, hey, I can think again. I have like my brain for myself.
No,
Yeah, I
It
get
is
it.
good. Having the separation between work and home is important. And you said so much, and I have so many things to say. And my psychologist tendencies, not really one, I just pretend to be one on
Yeah,
TV,
it's like,
kick
convenient.
in. And you are absolutely correct. Small children, or children in general, are a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, it's just, I think you go in parent mode, which automatically means like, I mean, and maybe it's self-centric or something, but it automatically means I can't really think anymore.
No. No, and it's also when you want to spend time with your kids and do kids, they require attention. It's to make sure that they're safe and they're doing things and they're not growing up on television and such. So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
And sometimes what you do at work is like kind of blends in on how you handle your kids and vice versa.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
true.
funny.
Yeah.
No, the separation is good. So have you had the same office at the WeWork for that same period of time?
No, I've been at the same building, but I've been changing units either by choice or by force. the first time I got here was with Sana Commerce, my first employer here in the States. We grew the team quite big, so we needed bigger units each time, which is the big convenience from like a shared office setup a little bit. And then I left them, and then I think a little while after they left the building altogether. I think they now left New York. Then I, like, what was it then? The pandemic was 2020, right? Early 2020. I had a killer lease, of course. Like I could negotiate like crazy. They almost gave me money to show up.
I was going to say, was it $10? They probably gave you $10 a month and a free coffee every day or something for you to sit there.
The coffee's always free, and in the old days they had unlimited beers. It was crazy. Like,
wow!
And it's a building with 17 floors. And each floor had its own draft, and they would list like the special, like the beer, the type of beer for each floor. And then we tried once around the holidays to start at the top and drink a beer on every floor.
And go down the elevator.
It got kind of messy, like around like floor 9 or something.
Well, I mean, 17, yeah, I think, about 8. Well, it depends how long you're doing it, but if you're doing it after work for the quick rundown, 17 beers can get a little messy.
So the cost covers that? Like, I know back
not
then,
anymore.
maybe not anymore.
I mean,
okay.
This is, I don't know how many people saw the WeWork kind of collapse, right? They were going to go to the stock market. They were worth 60 billion because they were this SaaS startup scale-up solution, and then the bubble popped. Like, they turned out to be a real estate company that had to sign 20-year leases with the building owners. Well, their tenants had month to month, so COVID happened at the same time, and everybody pieced out. And here they were stuck with a 20-year lease, and everybody else could get out of WeWork. So they had no more money coming in. And I think just because, talking about amateur psychology, I remember like the sunken cost trap from college as yes. One of those traps. SoftBank, I think at that point, poured in like billions and billions and billions that they had to double down on it because like they could not walk away from it anymore, and they bought off the guy for like $9 billion to go away. Wow. It's crazy.
I gotta check out that documentary. I know there was a documentary about it, and I never quite understood that WeWork. I mean, because at least for me, I've been working at home, so I never had the opportunity. But there are times when I'm working at home and I want to work somewhere. I just wanted to be somewhere else from my home office to get away. Because if you work at home 5 days a week and then your family's home, then you're home for the weekend. This is, you're here 7 days a week.
It's still crazy.
And it doesn't disconnect. So going to like even a coffee shop was like a big treat for me, right? Yeah. So an office space would be awesome.
There's more to it. It's the separation from work and home. Going someplace. Working from home is great. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of advantages. Some of the disadvantages are the inability to sometimes focus, I think, because you have a tendency to, I can just go throw in a load of laundry, which is, it's a blessing and a curse in a sense. Yeah. But also to have the distractions home. Whereas if you go to the office, you get to prepare for your day on your commute in. You work all day, you unwind on your way home, you go home and you just do home life. Whereas if you're working from home, sometimes if you don't have a defined workspace that you only use for work, you have that difficulty with the transition. But at Chris, also, they have different plans. You can you can rent an office that's yours all the time. Yeah,
that's what I have. So I leave my stuff here. I got the screen, I got everything here. I got a bookshelf.
You can lock your office and everything.
Yeah. And there's even like a spare desk here. Like occasionally my wife works from here or something if she can't get to the office, or one of us needs to stay home to pick up the kids or anything like that. So, or my daughter sits here and just kind of like collars a little bit. I can close it, but you have like, what is nice too And that is the big benefit of WeWork over some of the other providers. They have a global network. So I had meetings in Vancouver. I can just like in an app book a room, and like a second later my key pass works, and I can just buzz myself in and walk in. And it's kind of like the what hotels try to do too, right? Where you get a level of familiarity. So you get like the same coffee, you get like the design is all the same. So it feels familiar even though you're in a completely different location. So yeah, we had a meeting in Vancouver for a couple of hours and I just booked it on the spot. If I go to Amsterdam, I can walk into an office there and have a meeting there, or book a workspace for the day. And I think they're now experimenting that you can also like book like a screen, right? So you're not just on your laptop; you actually have like a second screen, and you can really sit down behind a desk. But I think they're still recovering a little bit on the money front. So in a city like New York City, it works, right? Because I agree, like with the commute element. I mean, I worked from home for 4 years or something, and you need to be really disciplined and body check yourself to get the stuff done. You need to have a very measurable job to also show to your colleagues that you are working, right? For some reason, still, I think instinctively people trust people who go to an office more than people working from home. Although I think all stats show that people can be very effective working from home. So
that's
anybody with
thing.
experience, I'm not too shy. But what I'm sad for is juniors, right? Like, where do you learn? We were talking about this the other day. I try to think about the context, but like you're not learning by osmosis anymore.
No.
But just by sitting next to someone and hear them talk without like listening in on their conversation, you just learn stuff, right? And you see how people handle bad news conversations. Just seeing someone else work makes you better, whether it's good or bad what you see.
You feel better too with that. Well, I want to go back to the other, Chris. They have the ones that you get to your office, but you can also go and just use the space. So you should get one in your area, and then during the summer, take your bike over there, or something. It would be good for you to have something like that, because you could get out, take your bike, go do some work.
Some locations have recording studios. Like depending on the building, they have like podcasting studios and stuff like that as well.
Whoa. That's pretty cool.
I think that, like you said, it's a balance of what fits your personal lifestyle or even professional lifestyle. Because I'm far from the city, and it makes sense for, major cities. You're within 5-10 minutes away, and you can take public transportation, or 5-minute walk. But like if I have to, and that's the thing too, like if I had to deal with like a hour drive. Now, if they have one nearby, I would totally.
You should look into it. They have different types of ones, and they are in different locations. They're not all in metropolitan areas. There are some.
Right. I gotta find something close.
There are some that are outside of the areas, but even just to get that, Chris and Chris had some good points with even the discipline and the trust of somebody at work. I agree with you. Somebody sitting at work for 16 hours isn't more productive than someone sitting at work for 8 hours, nor are they more productive than someone working at home for 4 hours. It's a matter of the individual and what they produce. But there is also a point to being in that office setting, because humans are communal. So for you to have the ability to talk to somebody, and your point about the juniors is so true, because in a remote work environment, I find that someone that's starting out or maybe new is less likely to ask questions or ask for assistance than if they were in the office with somebody where somebody could either check in on them and they say, oh yeah, by the way, I have a question, or it becomes more of an effort to talk to other coworkers or to get to know them. So there are some challenges there. So if somebody is working remotely, or there is a remote work organization, which is not what we wanted to talk about anyway today, but we just kind of went there, that you need to do something to encourage communication, encourage the knowledge sharing, encourage the asking for help. I've had some individuals that I said, let's just get on a Teams call and I'll work and you work and we'll just act like we're
like
in
a little break room.
Office. It works. It works. You can sit and work and talk and say, oh, by the way, you just get some of that small chat. Hey, I'm working on this and my head's stuck. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I've seen too, like with cameras on, with remote teams. So even you may have like 20 people in one location. There's another team somewhere else. Just put a camera on and you see people wondering, like you're wondering, like, oh, is so-and-so in today? And you can just glance over on the big screen and you see somebody moving around. You're like, oh yeah, I guess I can interrupt him now. Where if you see somebody super concentrated, you're not going to bother them, right? I mean, that is the other downside I find of remote work. You miss kind of the nonverbal cues of if somebody is like super deep into like complex stuff or is kind of like checking his Instagram, right? You don't know when you disturb somebody. It's...
water coolers fun too. I mean, it's been a while since been in office space, but you know, that's always fun where you just coming in and you're getting, you know, putting your stuff away, getting some coffee or whatever that may be. And then you like stop, say, hey, what you do this weekend? You know, it's like a really quick, you know, have a conversation like that. It's nice.
Maybe that's the pivot to talking about work. Like I joined Commerce Build in August, and it's hard to meet even virtually all my colleagues because they're all over the world. Everybody's remote. Like we have one office, and that's in New Zealand where the developers are. Everybody else is remote. Like there's not a real occasion to talk to everybody on a regular basis. So, like it, and I talk to some people several times a day, and to some people I never talk. Right? I don't have a direct reason to talk to the developers, which is a shame because if we were all in the office, I would bump into these guys and girls at the coffee machine, at the water cooler, and chat. So we got to come up with like a format for that. And I mean, I think there's like tools like through Slack and Teams where you kind of get randomly assigned to somebody for a week and you kind of get forced to take a virtual coffee break or something.
That's what they had, Chris. I had talked about this before, and he'll remember the conversation. You have meeting rooms where you have some companies try to schedule company meetings or company events virtually, which are beneficial. But sometimes if you do it in a wide scale, you have one or two people that may spend most of the time talking. Yeah. So you could force random breakout rooms that you would have people talk. But I like your idea of having everybody connect virtually. Again, time zone related. It's a little more challenging in a situation where you have
AI can figure that out for us.
Yeah, but you could do, for example, like a lunch Teams, right? Where you just show up in that lunch. You can turn on the meeting of that Teams channel and just sit there and have a lunch or whatever, take a break.
Or
if someone shows up and
you need to do more. I think you want a
CEO in Vancouver to be connected to a developer in New Zealand. And if it's a one-on-one, there's always a window that you can meet for 15 minutes. I mean, I toyed with this idea and I spoke to somebody who says, oh, it already exists. So I dropped it. But like this kind of randomizer that like throw all people in and every week you get connected to another colleague at random. Or you can even say, do not connect to these people because I talk to them on a daily basis anyway. And the system will find a slot in both your calendars that you can talk to each other, and you're forced to like chat with somebody.
I like that
you have no work relation with per se, or work reason to talk to, but you get forced to just chat. You talk about like maybe you spend a little more time on a Monday morning or Friday afternoon about the weekend. And like, what are you going to do? Or what did you do? And like, it becomes a little bit more personal because as efficient as remote work and online meetings are, it does take away a little bit of the human to human contact.
Well, people want to feel included. And I think if you had those, meeting rooms where a few people, maybe 2 or 3, because that way you can have the icebreakers. You still can go for that random rotation, but people will feel included within an organization. They'll get to know other people within in the organization, and I think they would become more productive as well, because now I know people. I know there are real people there, and I know other people that have their interests. It goes with the whole, like, we'll move on to the topic in a moment, but it goes with the whole situation of working with somebody back when we used to consult and travel before video camera, or even video camera now. Having met somebody, if you only worked with them remotely before, without video camera ever meeting them, only electronically or on the telephone, after you met them, the relationship was so much different, because now you have that personal connection, that personal interaction. And I like the cameras because you get that personal interaction, as Chris had mentioned, that you can see someone's face if they're busy, if they're in thought, or if they are not doing well, if they understand in a conversation. So I do think in the remote workforce, more should be done for companies. And I think that it would be beneficial to have a way for the employees to meet with each other.
I agree.
In a sense, but it's not a forced way. It has to be in a setting where they're naturally going to feel like they want to talk, because everybody has different personalities.
I believe in like the clubhouse for an office, right? Without making it overly casual, it should feel nice to get there and to hang out and stay a little longer and spend time. And then it's less about like being in the office or remote. And if people like to go there, they'll be there more often. And sure, there's a component of cost, especially if you factor in like domestic or even international travel. And working remote is not always cheaper, of course, because people need like another set of hardware and the logistics around that too, security of that. People just kind of like hacking on their own systems and having stuff flying around, and but yeah, if you can get to a format where people enjoy coming in and hanging with their colleagues, I mean that's the secret formula, I think. And again, it's a little bit easier in urban areas where there's public transport or walking, or but at the same time, if I see here in New York City, there's a lot of people that are forced to come to the office every day, and they walk in, they close the door, and they're basically remote. They just work from a central location, right? As always, the truth is somewhere in the middle, probably.
So with that, let's tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the topic that we intended to talk about.
Yeah. Well,
not that we ever intend to talk about anything. We just
I was going to say, like, we're going to like free roll anyway. I'm Chris. I am originally from the Netherlands, but been in the States now for almost 12 years, based out of New York City. I got here for a Dutch ISV initially that I worked for already out of the Netherlands, to develop the market here. So it was kind of like the first hire, and built the team, built the market. Done that for 5 years. Felt like ready for a new mission, building something new. Through some consulting I did, I got in touch with Continia, and basically the same thing. I built it out in a 5-year time span to a local team, with local partners, and doing business here. And again, kind of reached like a limit of like, okay, I think I've brought it to where I can bring it. Right? I mean, the company can grow much further, but I was not getting the energy out anymore that I was putting in. I was already on the board of Commerce Build, and they were looking to hire a next generation of management, given where the current management is in their life plan, sort of. We started talking kind of casually about it, and it is an industry that I was familiar with because of my previous employments, and of course in an ecosystem, a channel that I love and where I have a lot of friends. it became very interesting to make the jump. And for the first time, I'm not working for Europeans anymore, but I'm working for North Americans. They're still Canadians, so semi-European. But
you had to go there. You couldn't just leave that out.
I'm just leaving it as like culturally, right? I'm not making it, tying it to any political events.
Oh no, I am. That's okay, not you.
Okay, yeah. And and so since August basically, and super interesting. Like less about like starting from scratch, because there is an existing market, there is existing customers in North America. In fact, the far majority is here, all new challenges and opportunities, and
so it's
nice
great.
to
You've
work.
been doing some great things. I've seen your journey through there.
Yes,
and I'll ask you some questions when we talk about some events that are coming up soon. But what is Commerce Build? Tell us a little bit about Commerce Build, what it is, what they do, what types of problems they solve. And I can just not have to talk for a few minutes to just throw all that on you.
Yeah. Well, there's a group of people that pitches like it's the Uber off, or it's the trying to like make similarities to like a widely successful platform. So think of a Shopify for ERP, despite the fact that Shopify claims that they can integrate with ERP. It is a web platform, either just a simple customer portal where somebody can look up historical orders, pay an open invoice, to like a really big enterprise-grade web store where companies can sell products, spare parts, what have you. But all relying on the ERP. So how I'd like to phrase it is like we are an ERP-first e-commerce platform. So from the very first line of code, we've been built to integrate with an ERP. We know what data is in the ERP, what is crucial to do business online, inventory, customer-specific pricing, in general, any customer-specific logic. Because we're ERP-first build, we can easily replicate that online. Where if you are e-commerce first build, your database structure is kind of set, right? Like you expect X amount of products, X amount of customers, but they all have more or less the same price, and they all get delivered from the same warehouse. And kind of like the cool things you can do in an ERP are not automatically assumed in an e-commerce first platform. So you end up having to really modify the database structure from an e-commerce platform. There's connectors out there, but who's going to manage it, right? In the old days, I think even we had hoped that the ERP partner could own e-commerce as well. But I think talking to a lot of ERP partners over the years, it is a different beast, and they rather not be the primary responsible for a website where millions of revenue goes through.
It's a different technology stack. It's important. Everyone
it's
thinks
adjacent.
It's that way. Everyone thinks like, oh, I work in IT. But I hear that. I tell everyone, if I ever hear them say I work in IT, I just stop talking to them, because that just tells me something, because it's so broad.
Yeah.
So even having ERP and being an ERP expert doesn't mean you can be an e-commerce expert.
Exactly. Right.
And requiring someone to pick up a new skill is also a barrier for you, because now, like you had mentioned, it's, do I really need to pick up e-commerce, or do I want to pick up e-commerce? I'm already struggling with. And you
deal with like Google stuff, right? Like how am I ranking, and if people search for my product, where does it show up? And it's so far away from the day-to-day complex enough ERP business. We want to kind of fill that void in the small to mid market, like both our pricing and just our platform as is has been designed for the small to mid market. There are some gigantic enterprise solutions out there that serve their purpose. So I'm like I often get asked also, like, how do you compare to that player? How do you compare to that player? And I think, like, the market is so huge, and each client has their own unique needs, that there is enough space for all these different players, as long as they transparently and honestly communicate what they can and cannot do. I think everybody would be helped by that. There's just a lot of noise in the market because of everybody wants Shopify, right? But that works great for a lot of scenarios, but it also does not work at all for other scenarios. And you almost need like independent advisors to kind of steer you away from some of that stuff, because obviously when I say it, I'm biased because I have skin in the game. But there is a lot of noise around e-commerce. Generic players, very small kind of like connectors, where again, how I'd like to position us almost as an insurance to both the VAR and the customer. Like, oh, you hear e-commerce, just call us, email us. Like, we know ERP and we know e-commerce, and we can fill the needs there.
Is there a specific ERP that you guys are focused on? Or is it?
Yeah, so we originate from the Sage space, 3 different variants there. But since a year, like, we really productized our BC connector as well. So we have a good amount of BC customers now, all BC cloud. But we've been eyeing like the on-prem stuff as well, although that gets less and less attention, obviously, by also the way Microsoft likes to see things go. In our world, it's all BC cloud.
That's what I was going to ask. So you hit some key points there. There's many products on the market for anything, and it comes down to choosing the right tool to satisfy your needs. And that's, I think, what many forget. They may hear the Shopify's, which you summed it up well. Shopify does great for certain scenarios, and there's other certain scenarios where Shopify needs to even itself have customizations or use some of the other extensions. I've gone through some implementations where Shopify didn't do what somebody needed, but they wanted to use Shopify, so they had to spend additional costs to get it to work with the way that they wanted to do business. And
which can be worth it, right? But
it can't be worth it, but
all know it up front, and that's tough.
Well, it's just to know exactly, like you had mentioned, which tool is the best for your scenario. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It may be better for a particular implementation because of the scenario. And that's what I think gets lost with a lot of products. You had mentioned Commerce Build works primarily. That's what I was going to. One of the questions that I like to have is which versions of Business Central does it work with? So right now you're focused on Business Central Cloud as a product.
Yeah, exactly.
And to use Commerce Build, what does the customer need? Is Commerce Build, does the web store sit within the customer's environment? Is it something that you manage and host? Or if somebody goes to start using Commerce Build, what do they need on their end?
Well, again, it depends a little bit on their needs. It's all hosted. We provide it as a service, and it has all the security. We have all kinds of tools that can also avoid DDoS attacks and like what you can expect from like we've been around since almost 20 years. So we've been in this business for a while, but basically, we offer 2 flavors of our product. We have our own interface where people put stuff in their shopping cart, very easy to manage, to use, but maybe not all the bells and whistles that you see in the major platforms out there. And we've seen a development in the market where our clients do ask sometimes for the more like cool things, the shiny things. Some are very transactional and want a simple environment, no distractions, directly integrated. And others are looking at Magento, Shopify, BigCommerce, like all the generic big players out there, and are like, oh, in this platform, I can do so and so. Can I do that in yours? And we don't have the development dollars that these parties have, right? So we've been trying to find a solution for that. So we've been starting to offer a WooCommerce front end in parallel to what we do with our own platform, and
Similar
it's been really
to
taking off.
WooCommerce? You said
It is
WooCommerce.
WooCommerce. Yeah,
Oh, it is
it is
WooCommerce.
WooCommerce. Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
So we integrate that to PC. We have the technology to still be as integrated as possible, without like really losing some of that real timeness that a lot of the B2B clients require. Multiple warehouses, like all the things that ERP-first companies need, are often not possible in the WooCommerces of this world, because they're not designed for that, right? So we found a happy medium where we think that our integration offsets some of those downsides. And for clients that want to go that path, we have a solution, and we have clients that run it in parallel. They have their B2B on our own application, and they have their B2C on Woo. And I think I saw a stat somewhere like over 40% of the websites in the world runs on WordPress, and WooCommerce is the e-commerce engine from WordPress, right? So we I would say at least once a month get somebody like, oh, I have Woo already, but I'm struggling with getting pricing and inventory to Woo and orders back into my ERP, right? And again, there are connectors out there, but who's going to pick up the phone? Who's going to, like, apart from making it work once, like, what's the ongoing service model? What if you want to do something different? You want some additional changes. Microsoft Business Central is not going to answer the phone. WooCommerce or Shopify or Magento is not going to answer the phone. Your ERP partner, as we concluded earlier, is probably want to stay out of that. So that's how we really want to position ourselves.
You had mentioned both B2B and B2C. Is this targeting someone who has both B2B? Is it targeting someone who's a B2B, a B2C, or do you support both?
We support both, and again, it depends a little bit on the needs. If somebody is super easy B2C, they don't need that hardcore ERP integration, right? Then a connector is typically just fine, because again, the complexity of the ERP is not making the front end changes necessary. If you're B2B, having more than one warehouse is super challenging for some of these more generic platforms. What inventory numbers should they look at in the ERP? They don't know, because their integration only connects to one field, right? And as basic as that, becomes really complex to build and maintain in a system that's not designed for that.
So then that's when you bring in WooCommerce to do that, to handle all the crazy complex. Because I've been in a e-commerce project, and sometimes the things they ask is like, it's wild. So that's the solution that you're providing to your clients. That, hey, we can't handle that. We maintain the connector so that you don't have to worry about the data coming out of your ERP, or in this case, Business Central Online, so that you can have this complex requirements on WooCommerce.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's those clients that have the need for like heavy marketing, B2C like experiences. Woo is a perfect option. And we have a technical solution to integrate that with the ERP, so that the downside of these traditional B2C platforms don't come into the ERP with all kinds of like missync of data. And if that's what they need, and this is back to to your original question, Brad, if that's what they need, it does put a little bit more onus on the customer to have a team that runs the web store on a day-to-day basis, right? But then it's part of their business model. Then they probably make enough revenue that they have at least one, but typically a few people in-house working with it. Or, and it's the beauty of a platform like WooCommerce, there's tons of like e-commerce specialists out there that know Woo, but then don't know how to integrate that with the ERP, right? So a customer could get WooCommerce integrated with Business Central from us, and the crucial support that they need to keep that alive and running and developing over time. But they can also hire somebody around the corner that does everything else WooCommerce for them. So it gives them a certain freedom there as well.
So with it's a great product, it sounds, because you have a lot of flexibility for your implementation where you can do B2B, B2C, or if you have an existing B2C that's something that's in place, you can also augment it with additional staff of your own. As part of the implementation process, is it something that you, as Commerce Build, sets up and works with them for, or would it be the partner?
No, we own it. And the partner can be as involved as they or the customer wants. But we do the kickoff. We run the entire project until you're live, and then you roll over to our account management team, and then any ongoing needs you have, apart from support, of course. I mean, if there's a situation where I don't know, you're down because of some kind of DDoS attack or whatever, then we jump on that through the support team. But as you use it, you want changes, right? Like a house you buy, like as you live there, you start to see things that you would like to modify, and then you just bring us in and we do it for you. Or if it's really just strictly related to the Woo element of it, you can go anywhere with that, because we already have the house built, so you can go to any other contractor to make the changes.
What do you think would be the typical implementation? It's a blanket question because it's how long is a piece of string is what I like to say. What would somebody expect to be an average implementation time from the time that they choose to go through and set this up? Again, complexity, I understand, and anyone listening, complexity and scenarios are going to dictate if it's something can be shorter or longer, but for the ease of implementation, is it something that if they have like basic products, basic pricing?
Yeah, no, I get the question a lot, and I understand, of course, why. I would ask the same question. I think there's a couple key things that determine the timeline. One is it a net new ERP customer, right? Are they on Business Central Online? Do they have their pricing, their products, and everything set up there? It is much easier because we're not building the train as it's leaving the station. If it's net new, it always takes a little bit of time before the ERP is ready with the data that we need to populate the website. So that's an important one that can cause delays. And then the other one is how much experience does the customer have, and how much do they want to do themselves to build the website out. Of course, you have like item descriptions and things like that, but sometimes in the ERP, those are still very like internal written, right? Just like black box, 20 pieces, 10 pounds. That's not a description you can put on the website. Somebody needs to write that up. And there's all these cool AI tools.
I was just going to say, we had to throw it in there. But, that's the whole reason for the marketing co-pilot or the marketing description feature within Business Central.
Exactly. And by saying this podcast will rank higher now, of course, because we did some product placement.
I don't know. I think now we're starting to see where there's a trend to not talk about AI.
Somebody told me that they counted the amount of times AI or Copilot was mentioned in a keynote at Summit. I think it was over 100 times. It's kind of funny. But
I try to do my
low.
sessions. I try to do my sessions. I even said it at a session I did recently. I went almost the whole entire session without mentioning AI because I mentioned it because I wanted to make a point that I didn't mention it because we hear it all the time, and it's nice to go an hour without hearing it.
No,
but I ruined it.
Anyway, sidetrack. But if they have a lot of experience and assets, and they understand, because there's always homework involved in getting a website live, like there is homework involved in getting an ERP live. Yes, we've done it hundreds of times. You guys both on the ERP side, I did on the e-commerce side. But yet it's their business. They need to tell us how they want to run their business, either in the ERP or in the web store. So we're going to need their input. And the better they are at articulating it, the better they are at having the assets ready, the quicker the project goes. There's also clients that refuse to go live before they're 100% satisfied. And there's clients that say, let's just do the strictly necessary. Let's go live. Let's get some learnings in. Let's get early feedback from our customers. Oh, same, absolutely, because it's focused on the result. It's focused on progress, and what do they say? Never let perfection be in the way of good, or something like that, right? It's. I think I read a study where procrastinators and perfectionists are very often the same type of people.
Exactly,
because they wait and wait and wait, and then
yes.
because it's not perfect, they don't even start because they don't have a path to success. And to throw in another one-liner that I actually often use internally is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at the time.
Yeah.
It just you got to start somewhere, and
it's so true. It's so true. We talked about it recently on an episode that hasn't been released yet. It should be released soon. It's progress over perfection is what we spoke about.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's so true, because if you want something to be 100% perfect, I don't think it's ever achievable. Because every time you look at it, you'll see something different that you want to change.
Yeah.
And sometimes those changes you make aren't going to make an impact. Whereas what you had mentioned, get it to a point where it's secure. You can process the orders in a manner, maybe not 100% the way you're thinking, but at least you can get out and get the customer feedback to see how they're using it, to see if how it's used, to see how it flows. Then you can build upon that instead of waiting.
Yeah.
And those end up, from my experience, costing a lot more. It costs a lot more because you're always trying to make changes. You have scope creep. You have a lot of things that are moving, and sometimes you're undoing some things you've done. But also, it takes you longer to get to market. So if your business does, in this case, rely on the e-commerce sales, you run the risk of not maybe getting as many sales because you're waiting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you look for a partnership with the people, right? Both on the client side, on the ERP side, and for us as an ISV, without making it super soft. But I think if you dare align and have super transparent communication, you can overcome hurdles, and you can call each other out on nonsense. I mean, I sometimes have to body check myself a little bit. If we talk to a customer, it says, well, I want it in so and so way. And then I'm asking them, well, could you explain a little further? What's the benefit for you there? And then I get a vague answer, or and it probably comes down to, because that's their comfort zone. That's what they've always done. And they've probably done it that way because the previous time they implemented the system, it couldn't do half of what the systems can do today. This is the time to reinvent your processes, not to make your software do the same thing it did 10 years ago.
Thank you.
And it's so much cheaper to change a process than your software.
I'm holding back on that. I'm being more reserved, but that's one of the things I see all of the time. If you're going to move to a new platform or move to a new system, it could be upgrading, migrating, however you want to phrase it. moving a pile of, I have to be nice so Chris, we don't have to mark it. Moving a pile of poop from one system to the other system, still a pile of poop. And you mentioned it most. A lot of times I find requirements are based on a limitation that don't exist.
Yeah.
Because they existed 20 years ago, the old, well, we've always done it that way, or this becomes the requirement because our process has always been this way, because we had to do it that way, versus, oh, now we can do this in the newer system because that feature may already be in there. And we may have slight changes and we can gain some efficiencies. It drives me crazy every time when people think that, okay, I'm just going to move to a new system. I click a button and it's done. And they want to do things the same exact way. And I always have to ask them, then why are you upgrading? Why are you migrating? Why are you moving?
Yeah.
Like if you want the same thing, why are you moving? Just ask yourself that. Why are you really moving?
Yeah.
And then work around that. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, that's good. I mean, it's a dialogue, right? Or what do you call dialogue between three people? Is that still a dialogue? Trialogue, yeah. Yeah. No, this reminds me of a case that I had. I'll try to frame it to reveal not too much about the organization or the people that were involved, but we had an old license model that was like your on-prem situation, kind of where you pay annual enhancement, and we changed that to a more usage-based pricing. But we understood customers don't always like change of pricing. So we need to be super transparent about this, and we need to give them an option for at least a few years to stay on the old pricing. So we had like a way to calculate, to display, like, this is what you're paying now in annual enhancement. This, with your current usage, is what you would pay in the new model. You choose, right? And interestingly enough, for the far majority, the new model was cheaper, because it would be a more a fair system, because if they didn't use it that much, they wouldn't pay that much, right? So I call a client and I say, listen, exactly that. This is where you are now. This is where you would be in the new model. You choose. Like, I'm really independent in this. You choose, but obviously you would pick the lower one. Even with a doubling of usage in his case, he would still be off cheaper on a month-to-month basis than with the old model. And he got mad at me because he thought I was like trying to like finagle him into like a scam or something. I'm like, dude, I really don't care. You tell me. And if you want to tell me next week, that's fine as well. This is the data I have for you. You tell me, you choose, you let me know. I'll tell finance, and that's how the billing will work for the next few years. And if you don't like it, you can also just pull the kill switch. In fact, with the month-to-month, you can do it anytime by stop using it. Where now with your annual enhancement, you can only do that once a year. So you buy yourself more freedom. But he was so suspicious of me offering something at a lower price that he there had to be something to it.
You're asking for logic. Maybe that's hard to grasp.
Yeah. And he was furious, and to the point that I was like, okay. He started kind of swearing, and like, this is how all those software guys work, and like I was some like cheap car sales guy or something. So I was like, it's okay, like let's hang up. And I called the VAR that was on the call. I was like, I don't know. Like, you ask him what he wants, because I don't even want to talk to this guy anymore. He was so rude, and I'm not a very sensitive person, but it just hit me in my core also, because I like to think I'm very ethical in the way I do business. But yeah, it's like, what is the most logical thing is not always perceived as such.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. Old habits die hard.
It made me realize about talking about some logic that goes through when implementing e-commerce, Chris. Like, how do you handle challenges when it comes to when you, especially net new, when where e-commerce is brand new to the organization. They've never done it before. Clearly you can help them with the marketing materials. Like, how do you handle with the rest of the product materials? I think what we call them in the past PIM solutions, where you may have some images and then they may not have some, so they take like random photos or maybe start with one photo, things like that. Like, how do you handle that with Commerce Build?
Yeah, so the nice thing is that we can be a bit agnostic there. In the end, it's just a bunch of files or a bunch of text fields, and we can run an import, right? If there's a professional PIM setup, we can integrate with that. I mean, most PIM systems are built for that purpose, right? Where they can also have outside access to assets in there. We run into like less and less of the net new ones. I mean, my e-commerce experience goes back 15 years or so. And those days, it was a lot of net new. It was people like, oh yeah, I heard about this thing, the internet, where I can sell my products. And I guess, again, because of like developments in the B2C world, like we all buy on Amazon. So we understand the benefits of an online platform where you can buy stuff. What I at this point consider net new in our world is people coming off of the B2B side of Amazon, right? Where they just upload a bunch of basic stuff and they sell through Amazon, and then they slowly but surely figure out their business is growing, but they lose a hell lot of money on every transaction because somebody else is getting the money first before it comes to their bank account. So I think those are kind of like today's net new e-commerce clients that use an outside platform to sell and want to own that a little bit more. Then we integrate with, like, the question is it a one-time import or is it an ongoing kind of sync you need to handle? But there's plenty of solutions out there to do that. Ideally, it's again single source of truth, right? We assume that the ERP is our single source of truth, but sometimes there is a 1.5 source of truth, and with a PIM that handles some of those product assets, because the ERP can't do it, right? Like it's not that long ago that we had to concatenate descriptions to just say anything meaningful about a product, and because the ERP couldn't handle it.
Yeah, like brochures, right? Like if they want to add a brochure.
Oh yeah, especially assets and stuff like that. Yeah.
So with this solution, another big portion of e-commerce and ERP is finance. E-commerce customers can pay many ways. Mm-hmm. I've seen you can use credit card, you can use on-account payments if you have terms in the such of B2B. Mm-hmm. How does Commerce Build work with credit card payments or the payment options?
Yeah, so and this is going back to like what's the business model of the e-commerce platform, and our business model is just month to month, based on the type of package you buy from us. That's your price. But there's e-commerce platforms that have a GMV model, where they take a cut of your revenue, or a cut of your credit card transactions, or they force you to use a certain credit card provider because they have a better deal with them. It's a tough question to answer because everybody kind of handles it differently. But we want to be agnostic on the payment side. Again, because there are some historic relationships in place that cannot be changed for a lot of people. They have their own payment gateway, or they have their own way of tracking that in the ERP, right? Again, this is one of those things often overlooked when people pick an e-commerce platform. How does the ERP ultimately know that when they hit ship, the payment needs to be captured on a credit card? Because you do an authorization when it gets bought, but there needs to be a trigger when it gets shipped that they actually collect the money. How to do refunds, partial refunds, right? You want an as integrated solution as you can, especially with high volume. Like if this happens once a month, it's fine to do it manually. But if it happens 100 times a day, you want to automate it because you can do it manually. And so we're agnostic. We integrate with the common players in our channel, and even in some cases with the more generic players out there for payment. We want to stay out of it a little bit too when it comes to like hardcore PCI compliancy. That's a whole different ballgame.
So for payment processing, if a customer that wants to switch to use Commerce Build or start using Commerce Build, they can keep their existing payment processor if they choose, or they can find an additional one. Do you help them find a new one, or is that something that you have partners that you work with to help them determine the best?
Yeah, we defer to the VAR if they have a go-to party, especially for the in-channel, in-ecosystem kind of players. Yeah, we obviously on the back end know which ones work better in some cases than others, but again, we try to stay agnostic. I mean, if somebody asks a question, we'll give them an honest answer. But in the end, it's the VAR that I think has to have a say in that as well, because there's a lot more to payment than just collect the credit card information when somebody places an order. Do you want to keep it on file? Is it compliant? Again, what do you do with refunds? That touches more on the ERP than the e-commerce, interestingly enough.
Yeah, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, like they sometimes they want those functionalities available, and sometimes like, is there a reason if you're doing B2B versus B2C? Like, why would you want that? Are your are other businesses paying in Apple Pay?
You like, again, you try to. So everybody is kind of speculating how someone else is going to use the platform, right? So from my point, I'm speculating how our clients are going to use the platform, but they do the same thing. They have hundreds of B2B customers, and depending on the nature of the business, and we've seen this completely different amongst our customers and their customers. Some only get orders at the end of the day because they sell to mom and pops. They're busy during the day with their own stuff. So the day is closed, they close the door, and they place the order for the new stuff for next week or something like that. And we have clients who have clients that sell or purchase like the whole day long because they have full-time people managing that, right? So it is difficult to like look so many layers deep and understand how people use it, right? I mean, if I think about it myself, there's things that I buy on my computer behind the big screen because I just like, I feel like I need to see it on the big screen. I have that with flights, for example. I like, as easy as it is to buy it in the app of the airline, I do it on the big screen, but that's my personal preference. And then other stuff I just do on my phone with like just my thumb, right? I don't use anything else. I double click Apple Pay, boom, everything is pre-populated, and it's in front of my door the next day. So it is the type of transaction, the type of consumer, how often it happens, and in the end, I think you need to tailor to every buyer you want to reach, and where you have success is where you're going to put more of your money and double down on.
Yeah.
The options are important with that, and thinking of all these e-commerce things, and you mentioned the flights. I'm the same way with flights, to be honest with you. I have no idea why, but
I can't explain it either. It's just.
It's rare. I mean, I will do it from time to time if I'm in a pinch. Sometimes I need to do it from my phone, but a lot of times I prefer to go back to my computer. It's another digression.
That's interesting. So it's a matter of real estate, because I don't mind, booking a flight through my phone. To me, it's convenient. But there's some things that I shop for, like I need to see on a browser so that I can maybe read more about it or see more content regarding this product. So yeah,
I think for the flights it does come to real estate for me. Like I wanna see things side by side. I want to do a quick like validation of like price or something like that. And just the multi-browser thing on my phone. I consider myself pretty tech savvy. I mean, I'm the one getting all the phone calls in the family when something breaks down. But still, like handling multiple tabs on the phone is just not as convenient as it is on the computer.
No, and then some websites, if you switch tabs, you go back. The page has to refresh, and the little pop-up box comes up. We have to enter. Oh, I can't.
Or the worst is the windows in window, right, on your phone. Like you see some stupid ad on Instagram or something, you click on it, and then it opens the in Instagram browser. And then the navigation is completely different.
Oh,
and you're
yeah,
almost
yeah,
at the
yeah.
end of the checkout process, and you do something wrong or it loads wrong, and like the whole thing, you're gone, and you're like, screw that, I'm out, right? And it's meant to be convenient, so that Mark Zuckerberg collects your dollars and not the web store. But
I do say that sometimes I think things are purposefully inconvenient because they either are meant to frustrate you and you just say, forget it, I'm just going to do it, like buying a car from a car salesman, your car salesman reference. But sometimes it may not always be so purposeful, but maybe it's just that I'm old too now at this point.
We're guilty as charged on like the things that we blame our clients for, right? Like we don't want to change. I just wanted the same as 10 years ago.
Well, sometimes it was easier. You don't have to do as much. Technology simplified a lot of things, many things, most things, but in some cases it did not add another level of complexity in other areas, in my opinion. So we've had a lot of benefits, but in other areas, it's like, wasn't it just... I used to remember that with video games. Like Pac-Man was the greatest because you had the little stick and the button. That was it. And then as you grew up, and now you have these controllers with like D-pads,
more than the amount
sticks.
of fingers.
You have exactly. You have like a stick.
I stopped playing at FIFA 99, so I loved FIFA, the soccer game, being European, and then I think it was around the FIFA 99 that they changed it, and like it became so insane. It was less on the PC and more on the consoles. But it was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm not a full-time player. I'm not investing in the learning curve here. And I need more than two hands. Like, I'm out.
It's crazy because you have all those buttons and this, and you got to like do these combinations, push the stick in, go up on this pad, press the thumb button. Like you have like a trigger, a bumper, and this. I look at an Xbox controller, and it's like I just want to sit down and blow off some steam, like and just play a quick game. I can pick up like Pac-Man and just done with a joystick.
I freaking loved Duck Hunt, man. That was the game for me.
Oh, that was the best with the little gun. That was the best. See, back then it was much simpler, and
but even the technology behind it, right? Like it just I'm mesmerized by some of that. Like have you ever read into how it works?
No.
So when you pull the trigger, like the human eye cannot see it, but it changes the screen completely, the contrast. Like it's in a flash. The human eye cannot see it, but the laser.
That's from the tube TV, not by pixel, right? It's by the reflection or whatever it's shooting at.
Yeah. This is like CRT kind of like don't hold a magnet too close to your TV, otherwise it will explode. Kind of. This was the first
came
Nintendo.
out when I was a boy, so I don't even think you were alive then.
Duck Hunt? No, I've been playing Duck Hunt. That was a fun game.
Yeah, I played it at my cousin. He probably like was like a couple generations further with his consoles, but I just love the old stuff.
Wow, I have to read how that worked. That's interesting. Yeah, you head into Directions North America in April.
Next month, basically. Yeah,
low sugar, Chris. Low sugar. Low sugar. You have a booth there, or you just?
Yes, we do. Actually, it's my first time wearing two hats as a board member of Directions and a sponsor. I've always gone as a sponsor. I've not missed a conference since 2011, and I joined the board last year. So it will be interesting to see how how it is to be there in two roles. But I prep my team that I might not always be in the booth.
Well, no, understandably, if you're on the
Yeah.
board.
It will be nice. No, it's promising to be a really cool conference. The venue is really amazing. I'm not the biggest Vegas fan, but it's a pretty cool setup.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
like what I love about Directions North America, and I've been to others, but like of conferences in general, I like that kind of resort vibe, right? Where you, at the end of the day, still get to hang with your friends in the channel, and your competitors, and like your enemies, and like everything in the middle. But that's what I like, right? You just stroll back to your room, or you go to the bar, you go to the restaurant, and especially in recent years, it was pretty much a buyout of the venue. Everybody there is there for Business Central. As a VAR, as an ISV, it's partners only, so it's a little more casual. Nobody's hunting for like that one deal that's going to make or break their year. The size we're getting to is making less and less venues available, unfortunately. Even in the States where everything's bigger, to find a place where you can book up to 1,500 rooms for like a week exclusively, it's tough. Like you got the mega resorts, and then there's like 20 other conferences going on. Or you have the little ones where you have to make sacrifices in the experience, with like different places where breakfast is versus where the expo is. And Vegas is one of those places where we don't have to make too many sacrifices as an organization on behalf of the sponsors and the visitors of the conference.
It is a challenge with the number of people, at least in Vegas. I'm not a Vegas person myself. I've been there plenty of times. And Vegas to me is one of those, you show up on Friday afternoon, you leave Sunday morning, and you've had your fill. That's with just Las Vegas. I'm not talking of some of the other surrounding attractions. There's many things to do. Hoover Dam, Grand Canyon, a lot of other things you can do outside of Vegas. But at least with Vegas, you hit the point. With some of these conferences, I think the proximity of where people are staying to the venue is important. If you can't stay in the hotel, to have like a 2-second walk is advantageous. We did Summit in San Antonio. At least they were fortunate that they had the convention center, and then they had a few hotels. So if not everybody could stay in the same hotel, but at least a few were across the street from each other, or a little bit up the road. So it made it nice. So fortunately, Vegas doesn't have a shortage of hotels.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, I remember the last Directions in Vegas, which was great too. It was off strip, right? And it again kind of
Red Rock.
It gave that intimacy. Yeah, the Red Rock.
Yeah.
The intimacy of, was it like 50 bowling lanes or something in there?
Oh, that's right. That's right. There was like a 4D theater at Red Rock, but then you were so off the strip, so a lot of people left to go to the strip, and it was kind of a drive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dilemma, right? Like you want people to feel like they're not just there for the conference, but at the same time you want to keep them at the conference, because that's like, it's the people that make the magic happen. So it's finding that balance. It's the same always with like, what do we do for the partner celebration? Like there's people that love the amusement parks in Orlando, and there's other people who are like, really, do I have to sit in the bus for that for an hour? Or
so you're going to tell us about the partner celebration? Oh, you can't.
I know I can't. I think I would have to look at the website if it's already published there. That's my single source of truth.
To get something out of you.
But it will be good. No, it will be a lot of fun. It will be logistically easy, and something for everybody, I think. I mean, if you look at like the population that we aim to serve, like the needs and the wishes are like extreme, right? There's people that want to be able to sit down and have a 5-course meal, and there's people that just want to dance and have a drink in hand and don't care about anything else. And then all the shades of gray in the middle there.
And then there's me who wants to be in bed by 9.
Yeah.
Which is 6.
Chris,
That would be 6 p.m. for you, man.
No. Well, yes.
It'd be
6 p.m.
in
1800
Vegas.
will be my bedtime. So we'll see. We'll see how I do. I'm afraid.
Everyone's just waking up at that time, man. Come on, it's Vegas.
That's why we honor the conference rate a couple days early, so you can come in and acclimate, and you'll be good.
No, I will. I'll come in. I think I come in a day or two early, and I get in the morning this time. I never can. Sometimes you can get in at midnight the night before, then the conference starts at 8. But with the time difference,
that is good to know. The schedule is slightly different from previous years, right? So people that have gone to Directions EMEA are maybe more familiar with the flow, but there's a bit of a change for logistical reasons. So the keynote is actually on Monday in the morning. And not on Sunday in the afternoon. So there's a slight change in the schedule there for those people where they just blindly go and book the same thing every year, just different location. They got to keep an eye on the actual schedule.
And the partner celebration is the last day. Typically, the partner celebration is the day before the last day, which the last day is the half a day. So there isn't a half a day at the beginning and a half a day at the end. It's all full days.
Yeah, so we have more space for more content, which is ultimately what people are there for. At least that's what they claim. And that's again, because of the venue, we have the space to do more sessions, right? Because even there, we hit bottlenecks as a conference to just find meeting rooms where people can do presentations. There's only so many places where you can put 10 parallel sessions with at least 30 people in a room. That's great about this venue. There will be a lot of super cool content. I think the final decisions are about to be out any moment. I don't know when you guys publish this, but check the website directionsna.com for all the session information. There's a lot, more than ever. We have 3 full days now. We do a little bit of a welcome reception on Sunday night. People can get their badge. They can slowly kind of hang there. They can already socialize a little bit. And then we start sharp Monday morning. 3 full days of conference. And then, the party at the end. And then depending on when people want to fly back. Again, this is also a little bit East Coast, West Coast dependent. Vegas being pretty well connected. I think people have options. But of course, we hope that everybody kind of stays through the Wednesday night and leaves on Thursday. Whenever the flight schedules allow, or even connect a couple days. I think I'm actually going to stay a couple days longer.
Yeah, I was considering
do some. Same.
I want to check out the Grand Canyon again. It's been
talk with me.
20 years.
I've never been, and that's what I'm still trying to narrow down the logistics. I go to all these places. I tell everybody I've been everywhere, but I've been nowhere.
Yeah,
I go to so many places where I fly in, do what I need to do, and leave. Whereas this is one case where I want to leave Vegas. I don't want to stay in Vegas. I may stay a night to do a show because I'm expecting with the conference in the evenings. I like to talk with everybody, see everybody, but I'm hoping that Thursday I'll get the opportunity to do a show and then maybe leave early Friday morning to head south and go see the Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, and those types of things.
I'm thinking doing the very snobby New Yorker thing and just take a helicopter to the Grand Canyon. Yeah,
still talk to me. That's possible too, because it's
the Grand Canyon's well worth it to see it. It's mind-boggling.
I've done it from Grand Canyon with a helicopter, and it's the most incredible experience. Yep. So if you're gonna go in a helicopter anyway, you may as well just take it straight from Vegas to save yourself
fly out of Vegas on a helicopter. Go take you directly to. I
have to look into recent pricing because the last time I checked it out is about 10, 15 years ago. So my wallet might not allow me to be so snobby. But hey, maybe if we share a helicopter ride, we book it as a group. Then
maybe we'll see. I'll try to narrow down my logistics this weekend. So I'll definitely catch up with you. What's today? Monday. This week I'll know. In the next couple of days,
Yeah.
I'll know what I'm doing, because I still have to book my transportation back, and I was holding off determining if I was going to spend a couple extra days there. But if there's a helicopter from Vegas and we can get if we can get a few of us to go, then the economics may be a little bit better for you snobby New Yorkers.
The Sphere seems to be amazing. From here, I hear people that went there is like crazy. Like if you catch a good show there, it's incredible. And what I've done when it was at the Red Rock, there's I don't know if it's a reserve or like Red Rock Canyon or something. I went on an early morning hike there. It was fantastic. Like, and I could just take an Uber from the hotel. And it was a little bit like climbing on rocks. So like you should be ready for a bit of a workout. But you have an amazing view from the mountains onto Las Vegas. It is a really cool, kind of like cheap, right? Especially if you have a rental car, but even the Uber wasn't that crazy expensive. And while you're there, it's free. And it was cool. Like, and it's there's signage on the hike. I recommend that one for people that like to be outdoors and are early risers. Just be aware of the rattlesnakes, because they warm up on the rocks that stay warm. I saw one there when we went.
I mean, April, you're still nice and cool, but you're right. As you progress throughout the day, it gets warmer and they come out, and that's when you see them.
And the rocks hold the heat longer too.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot to do. Well, Mr. Chris, thank you for taking the time to speak with us again. It's a pleasure having you back on. I look forward to talking with you more after this to see about the Vegas trips. And also I look forward to seeing you in Vegas for that beer that you always provide.
Always. Yeah. That's
lots of options, not just beer. He can get you a cocktail.
Yeah.
Top shelf.
I'm onto a lot of mocktails these days, so it might be a little bit easier.
Mocktail top shelf, right? They make top shelf mocktail.
Is that guy in Denver ever bother you after that one night anymore, or was it Gail? Right? Was she unhappy about you?
Which one? Saying you had to buy me a beer? Well,
no, like the bartender in Denver.
That's right.
That's right. She got angry for nothing.
Right. I forgot about that.
I forgot
that
about that.
escalated out of nowhere.
Like out of nowhere, she just hated us.
She gave you a hard time. She didn't want to look at you, dude.
Like, I don't even know what was said. It was like, because we were all sitting there and there was just normal conversation, and she all of a sudden, I think actually caught up with her afterwards. I think she was just having a bad day.
The second time.
Yeah. I think she apologized. Didn't she apologize?
Yeah, she did. Now that it's coming back to me, they were short-staffed, and it wasn't coming in. The conference wasn't supposed to have so many people.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
By me just asking her a couple additional questions, I think she finally just said "screw it" and just got pissed off.
Dude, I thought
I
because
totally
she's
forgot
like,
about that.
I thought she was like, this guy's from Boston. I could tell. These guys are rude. She did. I remember when we came back, she was actually very, very nice.
Yeah, I think she just caught a bad day. So yes, I think that was all smoothed over, but that went from for no reason.
It was 0 to 100, man. And like, what's going on?
And again, I just had, I think, one drink, or I wasn't even drinking, because I know I had a lot of, mostly mocktails when we were in Denver. So it was crazy. But thank you for taking the time to speak with us again. How can someone get in contact with you to learn more great things about Commerce Build and the solutions and the problems that it can help an organization solve?
Yeah, easiest is an email, chris@commercebuild.com. LinkedIn is always easy to connect as well, or in Vegas at Directions, of course.
Excellent. I definitely see you there. Look forward to seeing you there.
Looking
Thank you.
forward
Going to talk with you soon. Ciao,
thanks,
ciao.
guys, and thanks for all the stuff you guys do.
Thank you, Chris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE.
You can also find me at matalino.io, matalino.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.